Does your house have that closed up smell? Do you feel like you're dusting more frequently? Have you noticed an increase in allergy symptoms? It might be time to have your air ducts cleaned. Call a Logan-based business, The Duct Hunter, at 435-770-4813 for a quote and to schedule an appointment.
We are the Duct Hunter. Breathe better, save money, protect your home. We are the Duct Hunter.
Serving overseas was just the beginning. We might be home from war, but our mission continues in communities all across the country. It's why we're out there in times of peace and crisis, providing meals to the hungry and supplies to the sick. It's why we're giving strength to those who are too weak and bringing resources to those without them. Service doesn't stop when we're done serving. It's what makes us the VFW. Learn more at vfw.org.
Bringing the governor inside your homes, hitting the issues that matter most to you. This is Direct Link with Utah Governor Spencer Cox on stations throughout the state in partnership with the Utah Broadcasters Association.
Welcome to this episode of Direct Link with Utah Governor Spencer Cox. This is a joint production, if you will, of a lot of different people, including the Utah Broadcasters Association, media outlets from all around the state, specifically in rural areas, and of course those of us here at KVNU. It is our opportunity to host this go-round with Direct Link with Utah Governor Spencer Cox, and we'll get things underway here. I am Jason Williams, and joining us, Governor Spencer Cox. And Governor, just to get things started, this is technically my third hour of radio today, so we've got to keep things lively, maybe get some fireworks going right out of the gate. I'm kidding. Thank you for joining us, and as always, thank you for hosting or being a part of these events, because it has really been an opportunity to contrast the differences of issues and concerns for folks in rural areas as opposed to what might be happening, though equally as important, if not more so at times, in the more populous areas of the states. There's a lot going on in the rural areas as well, and these Direct Link events have been great to highlight that. So thank you from us to you for that, and welcome.
Well, thank you, Jason. It's great to be with you again. I, for one, am glad that the entire state gets to hear the dulcet tones of the Jason Williams voice. It's great to be with you. I'm sorry about having you on the third hour. If it makes you feel any better, I'm on about the 12th hour of reviewing bills. So this is a great break for me, and I couldn't be happier coming out of another record passing of legislation from our state legislature, and I'm trying to survive the 20 days of reviewing those 591 bills that they passed in 45 days.
That is, I've never thought about that from the governor's perspective. You see those record-setting numbers 3 years in a row and think, I've got to read them all line by line. The legislative session was a wild one in certain ways. It was a productive one in other ways. We recently spoke with someone you know well from right here in Cache Valley, director of the Quinney School of Land, Water, and Air at USU, and commissioner of the Great Salt Lake, Brian Steed. And he described the legislative session as productive, incremental steps on some critical issues. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, Brian's a good friend. We've worked closely together for many years. Actually, Brian and I were classmates at Utah State University, so go Aggies. We were in the political science department together far too many years ago for me to mention. But it was a very productive session. I like to kind of tease legislators a little bit for their productivity and efficiency, maybe, but they did accomplish some really great things, including the Great Salt Lake and water conservation, and making sure that we have the water necessary for our farmers and ranchers, and to continue to grow. And there were several other, I think, major pieces of legislation that go beyond maybe incrementalism, and including, the thing I'm most passionate about right now, and that is affordable housing, attainable housing, specifically our our administration's focus on the building of 35,000 starter homes over the next 5 years, so that our kids and grandkids can actually own a home again. These would be homes under $350,000, things that we're just not building anymore. Single family, detached housing, and so I'm excited. I think we took the biggest step of any state in the nation when it comes to housing attainability, and I'm looking forward to the next several months and years as we help developers start to build more of these homes.
Again, you're listening to Direct Link with Utah Governor Spencer Cox, and this is an open show, town hall style format. If you have a question or a comment here in Cache Valley, you can dial 753-5868, or outside of the valley, all around the state, dial 1-800-369-5868 for your question or comment to the governor. And Governor, as we wait for those calls, this was back to our conversation here in the studio a few weeks ago with Brian Steed. It got us thinking, and we reached out to listeners to respond to his description of, productive, critical, incremental steps. And it led to this question that started to form in various ways from our listeners when it comes to this big issue the legislature has been dealing with several sessions in a row now. That's been a priority of yours in your own budget and your communications to the public, saving the Great Salt Lake while at the same time planning for a statewide water future. When it comes to those incremental critical steps, could you, for listeners, detail the specifics of what you see 2-3 priorities for the long-term plan outside of these incremental steps each legislative session? Is there a long-term vision you perceive for water in Utah, the Great Salt Lake, and everything in between?
Yeah, there absolutely is, and again, part of that is bringing all of these groups together. One of the difficulties with water, as opposed to some other issues that we work on, is that the state doesn't control all of the aspects of that, and that's generally a good thing. Again, a little harder when you're talking about kind of a statewide vision, and so when we look at these bills, and I would encourage people really over the past 3 years now, including this session, so 3 sessions in a row, we've made significant progress. So one issue is the Great Salt Lake and saving the Great Salt Lake, and the creation of an office of Commissioner of the Great Salt Lake. That Brian Steed is now that commissioner. That has never existed before. The whole purpose of that was to bring all of the agencies together that work on the Great Salt Lake. We're doing something similar when it comes to the water future of our state, bringing all of the big water districts together. And we do have these kind of localized water districts. They're not municipalities, although municipalities are part of them. They're bigger than that, but you do have these big water districts throughout the state, and bringing them together with we now have, again, 3 years ago, we passed a bill creating an office that deals with the Colorado River. And that is up for negotiation right now. And so we have these different basins as well. So where I live, the water does not flow into the Great Salt Lake, right? Southern Utah gets their water from the Colorado River, and so their uses and needs are very different in Washington County, and how that impacts downstream with Arizona and Nevada and Colorado and the upper basin states and the lower basin states. So it's unbelievably complex. I can tell you it's more complex than probably any listener understands, and more complex than I understood before I was elected to the state legislature. But I've learned so much recently. But what we've done is we've set up the mechanisms, we've set up funding structures, we've set up everything that we need, looking beyond just 2 or 3 or 4 years. We really are looking for the first time. We created a new water agent for the state, who again will be looking at this. Joel Ferry, who is also my director of natural resources, will be the water agent for the state, negotiating with other states around us, looking 30, 40, 50 years down the road to make sure that we have enough water, not just to save the Great Salt Lake. It's more than that. It really is about our future growth and making sure that the Utah remains the type of place with the high quality of life that we have now.
I appreciate you answering that question. Again, taking a lot of variations on that question from our listeners and grouping them into one. And speaking of questions, if you have one for the governor here on Direct Link with Utah Governor Spencer Cox, 1-800-369-5868. Here in the Valley, you can dial 753-5868 as well. And Governor, we do have our first caller on the line, Jeff from Hiram, south end of Cache Valley, has a question about religious symbols in the classroom. Is that right, Jeff?
Yes, sir. The radio news have contradicted themselves as the news came forward as to whether or not the Senate and the Congress of Utah have elected magnanimously to allow the presentation and obviously therefore the discussion of religious symbols of all varieties in the classrooms. Now, one of the radio spots mentioned that the governor was talking about vetoing such a thing. I didn't bring my children to Utah to have them learn all the stuff of all the other religions. When I came here, there was a lot of talk about the Constitution, which talks about the separation of church and religion, not the use of public funds or to broadcast religious symbols and discussions of them. So I'm wondering, where is the governor at on it? I don't know what the validity of the news announcements is. If it was really approved and then it was disapproved, or it was disapproved and then approved, it's been contradicted a couple times. Where is that law?
Sure.
Will the governor veto it, and will his veto hold against the entire Senate and Congress?
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff. Yeah. So thank you, Jeff. So I think I know the bill you're talking about. It did have less to do with religious symbols. There was a bill from a legislator in Cache County that would have required the display of the Ten Commandments in the classroom. That bill was changed dramatically over the course of the legislative session. So that bill did not reach my desk. There is a bill that has a list of historic documents that can be discussed in classrooms, encouraged to be discussed. I don't have that list in front of me. The new bill adds the Magna Carta to that list, and it does add the Ten Commandments that can be discussed as a historical document. Again, the promotion of religion in the classroom is unconstitutional and can't be allowed. But there's nothing that prevents. But by the way, teachers prior to this could have talked about, in a historic sense, that specifically around the founders and some of their beliefs, what those religious what that religious document would have presented. But clearly, the government cannot establish a religion or promote a religion, and we would refrain from doing that. But I can tell you, it sounds like what you're talking about did not come to pass. There were no bills around religious symbols in the classroom.
Thank you, Jeff, for the call. And for others out there, again, 1-800-369-5868. If you have a question or a comment for Utah Governor Spencer Cox, here with us this hour for Direct Link with the governor. Next up, Governor, we have Carrie from Mendon, Utah. Carrie is calling, wondering about the logistics of the legislative session overall. Carrie, go ahead.
Yeah, so one of the questions that I had is, in reviewing the bills and so forth, are they prioritized in some sort of way? And if so, how are they prioritized as far as your review process?
Great question, Carrie.
Yeah, Carrie. That is a great question, and I appreciate you asking it. I don't get a lot of questions like that, kind of thoughtful questions about how things happen behind the scenes. So let me tell you a little bit about how we do it. And every governor is a little different. We're very engaged in the legislative process. So we've been working with legislators. My team has been working with legislators all throughout to try to improve bills. I don't like to veto a lot of bills, and the way we don't veto a lot of bills is by working ahead of time and negotiating and saying, hey, look, will you make these changes so I don't have to veto that bill? And we have a great relationship with the legislature. As we go through the review process, we actually break them up into different categories and then have the experts on my team come and talk to us about it. So I can tell you today, we were focused on public safety bills. And so we had the Director of Public Safety, Jess Anderson, Commissioner Jess Anderson, who oversees highway patrol and public safety for the entire state. He was here. We went through, there were about 55 bills on public safety that we went through today. And he was able to help me understand some things, talk about the negotiations we go through every single bill. We did the same with elections bills. Yesterday, we did about 64 bills on education. I'm trying to, I can't even remember what the other ones were yesterday, but it all kind of bleeds together over the course of several days. But that's how we do it. And we walk through everyone, we give everyone, I look at the vote count from the legislature, who voted against it in the House, who voted against it in the Senate, ask why. If there were, and there were public hearings, if there's something I'm not sure about in the bill, I'll ask about the testimony. We can even go watch some of that testimony if we need to, because all of it's recorded, so that I get a good feel for what was happening in that bill before I make a decision whether to sign or veto.
Kerry, that is a great question.
Thank you. I had a follow-up question, if I could.
Sure, go ahead. Quickly, if you can. We are up against a break.
Oh, sure. Okay. In a legislative session, if the bill, is there a requirement to either accept and sign or to reject a bill, or can they transfer over to a next session?
So if a bill does not pass both the House and the Senate, it dies on the board and it is gone. They have to start that process over next year if they want to. I have actually three options. I can sign or veto. Those are the obvious ones. And if I veto, then they get a chance to revote. Only this time they need 2/3 instead of 50 plus 1, 50% plus 1. But the other thing I can do is I can let it go into law without my signature. The reason you would do that if I don't sign or veto it at all is to say, look, I know I'm going to be overridden maybe in a veto session. Maybe it passed unanimously and I don't like it. But it's a way to just kind of put on the record that I didn't like that bill, and so I let it go into law without my signature. But those are the only options.
Kerry, appreciate your line of questioning here, Kerry. That is great to be able to run through the process of the legislative session. And as the governor said, something you don't get to talk about often. So really appreciate that call, Gary. We are up against a break here. You're listening to a Direct Link with Utah Governor Spencer Cox, and we will be back in just a couple of minutes. Pat on the line. Pat, hold tight. You are first up right after this.
Hello, I'm Brian Webster, Vice President and Relationship Manager at Cache Valley Bank. As an experienced banker with deep roots in Cache Valley, I thrive on building meaningful relationships, supporting my customers, and providing personal attention to everyone I work with. I'd love to have the opportunity to provide you with that same level of service. Stop by our Logan Mall branch or give me a call and let me show you what opening an account with us can do for you. I look forward to meeting you. Cache Valley Bank, member FDIC.
Attention Northern Utah. Tired of dry, irritated eyes? Ready to rejuvenate your look and refresh your vision? Mark your calendar for a night of radiance at the Northern Utah Eye Center's Ocular Aesthetics and Advanced Dry Eye Open House. Thursday, March 14th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Discover the power of IPL photofacials, LipiFlow, and Botox for rejuvenating your eyes and enhancing your natural beauty. Remember, March 14th. Reserve your spot now for special event-only pricing. Sign up through Facebook, northernutaheyecenter.com, or in office.
Let me play a little bit of the testimony on Capitol Hill from the presidents of Harvard, MIT, and Penn. They were asked about, the calls for genocide of all the Jews on their campus. Listen to this.
I've heard chants, which can be anti-Semitic depending on the context, and calling for the elimination of the Jewish people.
Okay.
Well, sometimes when you call for the genocide of Jewish people, you're not being anti-Semitic at all.
Right.
The Glenn Beck Program. Sunday afternoons from 2 to 5 on News Talk KVNU.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SavedByTheSkin.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SavedByTheSkin.org. It could save your life. SavedByTheSkin.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
The Aggies are back on KVNU. Hear every game along with the best coverage before and afterwards on News Talk KVNU, the home again for the Aggies.
Welcome back to Direct Link with Utah Governor Spencer Cox. In association with Utah Broadcasters Association, we at KVNU are excited to get to host this episode of Direct Link, an opportunity to talk to rural Utah, hear from rural Utah, and get your questions in now. Utah Governor Spencer Cox here throughout the hour. 753-5868 within Cache Valley. Outside of Cache Valley, 1-800-369-5868. And Governor will jump right back in. We have a patient caller on the line called just before we went to that break. Pat from Logan has a question for you, Governor, about House Bill 272. And I don't remember this one myself.
Hi, Governor Cox. It's a pleasure to speak to you. So first, I want to thank you for all the progress you're making to protect our children here in Utah. And I heard that HB 272 and Ohm's Law both passed. Am I correct in that?
Yes, Pat, you are correct in that. That was a bill that was run by, I believe, Representative Paul Cutler and Senator Mike McKell, and it is called Ohm's Law after a really terrible tragedy where a child was murdered by a parent, I believe, if my memory is correct. And it did pass. And I just yesterday I did review. I remember that was one of the bills I reviewed, and I will be signing that bill.
So my daughter and I have been fighting in your courts basically for 6.5 years to terminate the other parent who's an abusive parent. And I just want to let you know it's a horrible situation when the judge refuses to actually listen to your evidence. And I wondered if you could elaborate on what progress those two bills helped for children.
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Pat. So I just pulled up the bill so I could have it in front of me. But basically, what the bill does is when we're looking at custody and kind of the parent time division when there is a divorce, it gives the court specific guidance to determine that custody and the parent time, specifically allowing for evidence of domestic violence, physical abuse, or sexual abuse involving the child, the parent, or a household member of the parent. And there are several other pieces of that. You know, if there are any material that was given to that is harmful to minors is included in there. Looking at the psychological safety as the child, and including the court can consider psychological maltreatment as well. So again, much more expansive than the original custody law. And my hope is, and with this bill and several bills that we passed in a few years, that we're doing more to protect our children and make sure that those terrible tragedies that don't happen again. And I'm so sorry to hear about the difficult situation in your own family.
Pat, appreciate the phone call. Others out there, if you have a question for the governor here on Direct Link with Utah Governor Spencer Cox, 753-5868 here in Cache Valley. Outside of the valley, 1-800-369-5868. And Governor, another question we got from a listener that it sort of highlights back to Carrie's question a bit about the process of the legislative session. I asked listeners to send some questions in advance, and one was, does the governor have a favorite bill that no one noticed? I thought that was a great question because it does reflect a lot of what we see play out, where there are several bills that get a lot of attention, often early in the session, and then others that just fly under the radar and not even a mention. Do you have a favorite bill that no one noticed?
Wow, Jason, that's a really interesting question, and certainly one I have not thought about at all. My brain is kind of fried from reviewing so many of the bills. But there was one bill that I really liked that it was noticed, but it was probably only noticed by teachers. But we significantly increased the amount of money going to teachers to help with the supplies that they buy for their classrooms. I was very dismayed to find out that so many teachers were buying we're buying supplies for their classrooms and paying for them out of pocket. And while we've done a great job of increasing salaries for our teachers over the past few years, including last year, the largest increase in our state's history for teachers, I still don't think that teachers should be buying supplies out of their own pockets. And I think we should be able to pay for that. So we were able to increase that to $500 for elementary school teachers. And it's something I hope we can continue long term. And that's one that probably won't get a lot of attention. It seems like a little thing, but for those teachers, it's a big thing. And it's so important to me and my wife Abby, who is a special educator, got her degree also from Utah State University, and we cared deeply about our teachers. And that was just a little one that didn't get. I think there were no news stories about it, but I think it was a really important one.
This is a question that, while we're waiting for the calls, just a question I've had for you, Governor, and I think I knew what you meant when you said it, but I think listeners might appreciate hearing you expand on it. But ahead of the legislative session, you said, when asked by a journalist about vetoes, do you plan to veto this or that, or do you plan to use the veto pen aggressively? And you said, the goal is to not have to veto anything. Can you expand on that a little bit, what you meant by that and how it informs your approach to not only the 45-day legislative session, but ongoing work with lawmakers, budgetary issues, and more?
Yeah. Thank you, Jason. Vetoes are fun. They make headlines, and people get really excited when there's animosity between the executive and legislative branches. And look, it's very possible that we will have some vetoes this time. But the truth is, if we're doing our jobs well, and we do have a really good relationship with legislators, there will be very few of those because we have worked so closely and collaboratively. There is a tension between the executive branch and the legislative branch. That was intentional. It was intended by the founders of our national constitution, of course, between Congress and the president, but also our state constitution. We are co-equal branches of government. We have distinct duties, and I represent a very different district than the average legislator. Every member of the House represents a little over 40,000 people, or around 40,000 people. Those in the Senate, over 110,000 people. I represent 3.4 million people, and so we have different constituencies, and that's very important. But we have made it's part of my leadership style. That was the case when I was a mayor of my little town of Fairview in central Utah. It was true when I was a county commissioner. It was true when I was running my small business in rural Utah as well. And that is that I believe collaboration leads to better outcomes. And so we try very hard. My team works very closely with legislators to make sure that we have the type of relationship where we really can push back as they're working through their bills and say, I want to be respectful. I know this is what you're trying to accomplish. I disagree with you, but I'm willing to see if we can't figure something out. And 98% of the time, 99% of the time, we can figure something out. Now, it does not mean I get my way every time. I sign lots of bills that I don't like. I wish I could just write the bills the way I wanted to, but that's not how the system works. And there has to be some give and take. And so if I just vetoed every bill I didn't like, that wouldn't be good for our state. And I would also just get overridden every time. And so that doesn't help anything either. I have priorities that I want to accomplish, and I can't do that without the help of the legislature. And so I need them to run bills on my behalf for our priorities as well. And they've been great to do that. So that's really what I mean when I say, that the hope is that we won't veto any bills, because if we've really done our job and we've really worked hard, there won't be a lot for me to veto at the end of the day. And again, I love our legislature. I have so many great relationships there, and it's hard. It's harder than people think to leave your family for 45 days. It's intense. They don't always get it right, neither do I. But I'm really proud. I would put our legislature up against any legislature in the country right now.
Except for Representative Casey Snyder, right? We always have to throw that on.
Representative, he's a problem. I don't know what you guys are doing up there in Cache Valley. No, I'm joking. We're both joking. We love Representative Snyder. I was actually at the Utah State game, the last Utah State game against New Mexico with Casey. Incredible shot with 3 seconds left to win an outright Mountain West Conference championship for the first time since they joined the Mountain West, and it was a great night for all Aggies, including Casey Snyder.
Honestly, an amazing game and excitement there in the stadium as well. For listeners, again, you're listening to Direct Link with Utah Governor Spencer Cox. This is your opportunity to ask rural questions, to talk about rural concerns. This is something that oftentimes can fall to the wayside, understandably, with the challenges along the Wasatch Front, growth in Salt Lake County, Utah County, all of those areas. oftentimes rural areas can be an afterthought, but Governor has made it a priority of his to make sure rural areas, where he hails from as well, get a spotlight, and this is your opportunity. So we'd love your questions and comments for the governor. Still half of the hour to go. We'll go right up until 7 o'clock here tonight. 1-800-369-5868. If you have a question for the governor here in Cache Valley, you can dial 753-5868. Please make your voice heard, ask your questions, and bring your comments to the show. More of Direct Link with Utah Governor Spencer Cox to come right after this quick break here on KVNU Logan.
Good evening. I'm Bill Walter, KVNU News. The IOC's Future Host Commission will visit Utah in early April to conduct meetings and visit potential venues for future winter games. IOC spoke on Monday to members of the media during a roundtable conversation where they shared broad information on the visit and took questions. Jacqueline Barrett, IOC Future Olympic Games host director, who mentioned both being in attendance for the 2002 games, said it's going to be great to see how Salt Lake and Utah are approaching this new and fantastic project. During their visit, the Future Host Commission will focus on the vision for Utah hosting the games, as well as looking at the impact, legacy, and sustainability of the potential games in 2034. They will also take into account the support for the games. The commission will be visiting all the venues within a 1-hour radius of Salt Lake City, including city venues and mountain venues. The Future Host Commission will visit Utah April 10th through the 13th. 2 people were hospitalized following a collision between 2 cars along a road in Morgan County. The Utah Highway Patrol responded to the crash on West Old Highway Road shortly after 5 p.m. Monday. Troopers arrived to find a minivan overturned by the side of the road. Preliminary information suggested that a pickup truck traveling eastbound veered across the center line into the westbound lanes, colliding with the minivan traveling in the opposite direction. According to Cameron Roden with UHP, 2 or 3 occupants from the minivan were transported to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Chance of rain and snow tonight, just a slight chance tomorrow. For the latest news, visit CacheValleyDaily.com.
Are you getting overwhelmed by decisions regarding Social Security? Adams Wealth Advisors is here to help you secure your financial future by helping you navigate the complexities of the Social Security system. The team of experts at Adams Wealth Advisors is ready to guide you through the process and tailor a custom financial plan that fits your goals and aspirations. With Adams Wealth Advisors, it's not just about managing your wealth, it's about empowering your future. Call 752-1702 or search online for Adams Wealth Advisors to schedule an appointment with a Social Security expert today.
Spring is here and new deals are blooming at Murdoch GMC Chevrolet Cadillac. Pick your new car at our spring sales event. Everything feels new in spring, so pick a Murdoch GMC and drive renewed. Receive up to 2.9% for 6 years on a new Sierra 1500 or up to $10,000 off a new Sierra 1500 SLT. When you walk through our doors, you feel like family at Murdoch Chevrolet GMC Cadillac in Logan or online at MurdochChevroletLogan.com. GMC, we are professional grade.
Call 866-628-3065 or see dealer for complete details. Offer expires 4/1/24.
Living room, bedrooms, bathrooms, kitchen, family room, laundry room, mudrooms, and more. Deciding what flooring goes best in each room of your home can be a decision fiasco. Hart Floor Company helps people just like you make those decisions every day. Whether you're building or remodeling, Hart Floor Company will show you ideas with stunning designs and sensible solutions to fit your lifestyle. Whether it's carpet, vinyl, tile, LVT, or hardwood, make sure you visit Hart Floor Company at 390 North 10th West in Logan.
Hi, this is Gordon Deal. Wednesday on This Morning, America's First News. With inflation unexpectedly rising last month, President Biden has a new narrative developing for his campaign right after his State of the Union. Also, how the delayed FAFSA form is hurting current college students. And in pursuit of easy profits, passive income from vending machines is trending. We'll examine the low startup costs and simple formula. Wednesday on This Morning, America's First News. From 4 to 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM.
Your station for the Aggies. News Talk KVNU, 102 FM, 610 AM. And on Alexa, Google, online, or the KVNU mobile app.
Welcome back to Direct Link with Utah Governor Spencer Cox, courtesy of the Utah Broadcasters Association, and our opportunity here to host this go-round here at KVNU. Excited to do that. Governor Cox with us until 7 o'clock, and again, it's open, 753-5868. If you have a question or a comment for the governor this evening, outside of Cache Valley, you can dial 1-800-369-5868. And Governor, again, thank you for making the time. I know that these unscripted hours like this can go in a lot of different directions, but I appreciate each and every one of these being so focused on rural Utah. And back to something that you've mentioned, and many people might know about you already. You hail from rural Utah. Here in Cache Valley, we struggle sometimes when we hear people refer to us as a satellite community of the Wasatch Front. We still think of ourselves as rural Utah, and most parts of the valley still are. In Box Elder County and Rich County, of course, that is extremely rural. A description is extremely appropriate. That is changing, rapidly around other parts of the state. And as governor, you represent the state. Each individual lawmaker during the legislative session represents their district. And oftentimes it can seem like the needs and the priorities of somewhere like Syracuse or anywhere in Davis County can be diametrically opposed to those here in Cache County. And then you, as governor, your job is to try and make all of that mesh together. How is that going, and where do you see that going as population continues to, in some areas, almost double over the next few decades?
Yeah, Jason, it's a challenge, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. And I just want to give it a shout out to the folks in Cache Valley. I still think Cache Valley is very rural. It is growing for sure, but we've my wife has a sister who lives in Wellsville, and I have an aunt and uncle that live in Lewiston, and had a sister-in-law who lived in Benson for a long time. So there are still lots of very rural places there. But look, we are changing as a state. We are growing. We were the fastest growing state over the last decade, according to the census, and that certainly exacerbates the challenges. But I do believe that rural Utah still matters, and I'm very committed to it. I'm proud of what we've been able to do. Job growth in rural Utah is important to me. My dad and grandfather used to say that our best crop on the farm I grew up on, the best crop is our kids. It's also sadly our best export, and we've had to send out too many of our kids. I was one of the lucky ones who got to move back home after graduating from Utah State and law school and raise my family on the same farm. And I'm grateful that I had that opportunity. But I'm sad for those who don't. What's interesting, though, Jason, is now people on the Wasatch Front are starting to experience a similar thing, but for different reasons. We had to leave the farm in rural Utah because there weren't any jobs. Too many kids are having to leave now the more urban and suburban parts of Utah because they can't afford to buy a home. And that's something that is deeply troubling for me. How do we maintain our high quality of life that we love here, and also make sure that our kids and grandkids can live here? And so we've worked really hard to find ways to join the concerns of urban and suburban Utah with rural Utah. We're moving jobs to rural Utah. We've moved about 600 jobs to rural Utah, state jobs, which I'm very proud of. I just met with our public lands folks. They now have attorneys. Instead of all of the attorneys being in Salt Lake, they now have attorneys in places like Panguitch and Cedar City and other parts throughout the state. So that's made a big difference there. And we know we have to build more homes, and some of that's going to be in rural Utah, and we can still preserve our high quality of life and preserve our rural lifestyles. We get to choose those things. And we sometimes fall into this false choice where politicians will try to divide us between urban and rural, and tell us that those terrible people are coming to take away our way of life. And it's not about that. It really is about making sure our kids and grandkids get to live there and maintain those same values. And so we're committed to doing that. And I think we can do that really well. And I'm grateful that we have such amazing partners, our mayors and city council members and county commissioners who are working closely with us to make those things happen.
Direct Links with Governor Cox again this hour. If you have a question or a comment for the governor, phone lines are open, 1-800-369-5868, or here in Cache Valley, you can dial 753-5868. Governor, another question that I have seen in many different forums, and we got a few of these from our listeners ahead of tonight's event as well, and I would describe it as just an anxiety that some in the agricultural community are feeling as they see lawmakers debating, the noble effort, admittedly, of saving the Great Salt Lake, or planning for the future, or water development projects, talk of new reservoirs in some areas of northern Utah. And in agriculture, there is some anxiety around that because they feel a bit targeted at times. And one way this was expressed to me from one of our listeners who sent a question in for you tonight, the message from the listener literally said, "Please don't let them ban alfalfa." But that kind of gets to a lot of this debate, right? We saw, initially all these reports about how what a horrible crop that was to be growing in the desert, and then a lot of people in agriculture came back and said, "Well, wait, have you seen how lengthy the taproots are on these plants, and it can be left dormant for a year? Maybe it's actually a good crop to be growing in the desert." There's a lot of nuance to this, but to that listener's plea, don't ban alfalfa. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I love that listener, and would love to give them a hug. I probably know them. It wouldn't surprise me if I did. And I feel that. I feel attacked sometimes too. I mentioned that I was raised on a farm. We raised our kids on a farm. We still have that farm. We are still producing hay and alfalfa. And I still get on a tractor. My wife gets on a tractor. We're still doing the work. I'm grateful for my siblings and their spouses who are helping keep the farm going. And it is a critical part of life and our rural lifestyle. It's not just a way of life. I think it's national security. I mean that sincerely. We saw during COVID what happens when our food supplies are disrupted and when we outsource our food. Food takes water. And so sadly, too many have seen this as a false choice, that we have to choose between the agriculture community and saving the Great Salt Lake. Again, that is absolutely a false choice. I'm so proud of what we've been able to do with the legislature and with the ag community. We've put in hundreds of millions of dollars in ag optimization funding, which is helping our farmers actually upgrade the technology so they can grow more food and grow more alfalfa with less water. We know how to do this. There are technologies out there that allow us to do this. There are opportunities for them to monetize the water that they're saving in ways that will get that to the Great Salt Lake and help keep them whole. You're absolutely right that when the experts came in and looked at alfalfa as a crop, they found that it was a much more complicated story than some of the kind of extreme environmentalists had made it out to be. That alfalfa actually is a really good crop to grow in the desert. It can go dormant, and I can tell you, in dry years, like 3 years ago, nobody conserved more water than farmers. We cut back about 75% on our farm, and the alfalfa was able to survive to another year. So instead of bankrupting us, we're able to keep that going. I will also just state for the record that our farm, the water does not go to the Great Salt Lake. It goes out into the desert. But nevertheless, that is important to have those nuanced conversations and make sure that we are protecting our farmers. So this year we passed more legislation around agriculture. We have conservation easements that we put some money into that help farmers maintain those, so they can actually keep the farms in the family for multiple generations. What I'm more concerned about now, honestly, Jason, is the loss of farms as our farmers are aging. The average age of a farmer now is well into their 60s. Many of these farms will not be passed on to the next generation and end up just getting developed, and then the water gets turned into to culinary purposes, which is how we got the water for most of our cities and towns. They were developed as agriculture water in the first place. So we have plenty of water to do what we need to do. Just have to be smart about it, and we have to protect our farmers.
Appreciate your answer again, Governor. For listeners, one more time, you are listening to Direct Link with Utah Governor Spencer Cox. This is a live event. You're welcome to call and join us here up until 7 o'clock. The governor taking your calls, 1-800-369-5868, or here in Cache Valley, you can dial 753-5868 if you have a question or a comment for the governor. Any topic is fair game, and appreciate the governor's time doing this, a chance to focus and discuss in greater detail issues facing rural Utah. So please, especially here in northern Utah, chime in 753-5868 or 1-800-369-5868, and we'll be back with more right after this.
American energy is under attack. Joe Biden has waged a war on American natural resources and made it harder to produce affordable, reliable, and clean energy right here in Utah. Our energy prices are already going up. Biden's policies will make it worse. But Republican John Curtis has our back. There is no greater supporter of unleashing American energy than John Curtis. John Curtis knows our abundant natural resources help keep us free and safe, powers our economy, keeps the lights on, and keeps Utah on the move. John Curtis is Utah tough. He's taken the fight to Joe Biden and the Washington politicians who all want to hurt American energy. And now we need a conservative to take the fight to the United States Senate. We need Republican John Curtis, a strong defender of American energy dominance in the fight for us.
Paid for by Clear Path Action Fund. Not authorized by any candidate or candidate committee.
I'm Larry Gelwicks, the getaway guru, with Morris Columbus Travel and Delta Vacations, with double discounts on your air and hotel packages to the sunny beaches of Hawaii and Mexico, to Europe and the Caribbean, and you save like never before. And for the best travel deals on the planet, give us a call at Morris Columbus Travel.
Come on and get away, Morris Columbus.
Wednesday edition Clay Travis Buck Sexton Show. More primary results roll in. Is Trump officially the nominee? We'll discuss. Plus, Buck.
Looking at what the Biden administration is going to do on the issue of being soft on crime. It's a problem for Democrats. Could it drag Joe down in a way that will change the outcome? We'll discuss that and much more coming up on the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show.
10 to 1 on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM and 610 AM. For the People, weekday afternoons from 4 till 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
Welcome back to Direct Link with Utah Governor Spencer Cox. It is your opportunity to get a question or a comment in. We are live here until 7 o'clock. About 8 minutes left in the broadcast here, so time for a call or two. 1-800-369-5868 or 753-5868 here in Cache Valley. Again, Governor Cox hosting or being a part of these events on a regular basis to put a spotlight on issues in rural Utah that are oftentimes different than some of the more populous areas of the state. And along those lines, Governor, this is just a treat for me. I have all these questions for you, and without callers, I can just list them all off. But you made a priority.
It's great, Jason. You can ask anything.
We'll talk about your shoe choices or something next. No, this is this was really interesting for me. When you first came into office, you talked about this, but you've focused on it and even doubled down on it a few times over, including this year. But you talk a lot about education in rural areas and initiatives that we've seen before, such as trying to get first-time students into colleges. Someone who may be the first in their family to ever attend college, but also the lack of necessity for college. You've talked about the role of technical and vocational training and associate's degrees, and that we need to do a better job, you say, of making sure those are available and accessible in rural areas of the state. How is that project going?
Yeah, thank you. Again, as someone who went to North Sanpete High School, we were a 2A school, 3A now, where 5 towns went to the same high school together. And that's where my kids went. It's where my parents went, my grandparents, my great-grandparents. We don't get out much. We've been there from the original settlement of Sanpete County. And looking at what's happening in higher education today, look, our colleges and universities are vitally important as ever, and I'm so grateful that we have amazing institutions. I've got two kids at Southern Utah University in Cedar City right now. One who graduated from there. Again, Abby and I went to Snow College and to Utah State University. So those are really important institutions for us. But what we're seeing is we also need much more vocational training. And our trade and technical institutions in the state are also doing great work. And we're trying to get them out into more high schools. We want high school kids and even middle school kids to start to have some real life opportunities, some work opportunities. We found that they do much better when kids understand the connection between education and work, and when they start learning real skills. Look, we are losing our skilled workforce. We desperately need more welders and plumbers, and these are good jobs. We made a mistake as a country when we tried to convince every parent that every kid needs a bachelor's degree. Bachelor's degrees are important, but they're not for everyone. And there are so many other amazing jobs that pay well, raise a great family, and sometimes you can do it with a certificate in 6 months or a year, and you can be right into the workforce. And we're also trying to get more of our employers involved as well, to really help get kids involved, get them different opportunities to start working and learning and getting credit for those as they're doing internships and apprenticeships. And that's something we're working on as a state, and we're getting much better, getting those opportunities out into our rural high schools more so than ever before. And I'm pretty proud of the work we're doing, but we're not done. We have a lot more to go.
Appreciate that, and it's been really interesting to watch that project grow throughout your administration. Governor, we do have just about 4 minutes left in the hour, and we do have we had a caller with a question about, and I don't know the details on this. We had Dylan on the line from Vernal. We've lost Dylan. Dylan, if you're out there, I'll try and ask your question for you. But he wanted to ask about both an oil refinery closure, I assume in the Vernal area or the basin area, and what he referred to as the bottleneck in the basin. I'm not sure how to expand on that. We've lost Dylan, but that's the information I have. Would you care to respond?
Sure. No, I'm happy to, Dylan. Thanks for calling in. So look, we're very fortunate to be blessed with these natural resources especially in eastern Utah when it comes to oil and gas and the work that's going there. The legislature focused on energy development in our state, and that's important. We're in all of the above state. We love renewable. We're doing a tremendous amount around solar and geothermal and wind, but also traditional energy sources around oil and gas. We do have a little bit of a bottleneck, and we've been working on ways to get more refining capacity in the state, as well as to get that oil, when we're maxed out with our refining capacity, to get that oil to other places. So one of those is a rail project that we've been working on. Sadly, that rail project has been put on hold because of a lawsuit and the federal government. We're working through that. We're working on improving our roads to be able to get that oil to refineries so that we can do so. Lower the cost of energy is important to us, and we're constantly battling with the current administration, with the federal government on helping to do that. But we're making some progress, and I'm hoping that we can improve those bottlenecks and make sure that we're providing those amazing jobs out in the basin.
Dylan, thank you for the question. To all of the listeners tonight who called in or messaged ahead of time or during the show with a question, appreciate your time. And most of all, Governor, appreciate your time. The time has gone fast. We're officially out of time for this episode of Direct Link. But for listeners out there, this happens on a regular basis. Take advantage, spread the word. Direct Link with Utah Governor Spencer Cox is an opportunity to focus on rural Utah, unique issues and challenges and priorities of rural parts of the state, something that Governor Cox understands through his own experience, means that you have a chance to make sure your voice is heard directly in conversation with the governor. So keep an eye out for the next episode. Again, thank you to Governor Cox for his time tonight, for our listeners for making the time to call in as well and be a part of the show tonight. And we'll see you next time on Direct Link with Utah Governor Spencer Cox. That is our time tonight. Thank you for tuning in here on KVNU Logan.
You've
You've been listening to Direct Link with Utah Governor Spencer Cox on stations throughout the state in partnership with the Utah Broadcasters Association. Tune into this station every other month for Direct Link.
Thanks, guys.
In honor of all those we've lost to cancer and those still fighting and thriving, like basketball analyst and cancer champion Dick Vitale.
I want to beat cancer. I'm going to beat it. That's no doubt in my mind. I'm going to win this battle.
Defeating cancer will take all of us. Join our team to help fund game-changing research that saves lives. At the V Foundation, V is for victory over cancer. V is for victory over the odds. V is for victory over health disparities, victory over setbacks, victory over the unknown. V is for victory over giving up.
Don't give up. Don't ever give up.
Join the V Foundation team and help save lives.
Cancer can take away all my physical abilities. It cannot touch my mind, it cannot touch my heart, and it cannot touch my soul.
Join our team in the fight against cancer at V.org.
Keeping you informed 24/7.